Danny Kruger.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to speak to the motion laid by my honourable friend for Northampton South relating to Lord's Amendment 5. And now I recognise that there is a genuine problem that the Lords, well, the original bill and the Lords have sought to address, and there is a real issue with harassment, with intimidation, with offensive behaviour directed at women who are going into abortion clinics. And I recognise that that requires policing and that it's appropriate for the authorities to pay attention and to stop harassment and intimidation. And this House and the other place have decided that additional legislation on top of what's already on the statute book is required to enable that additional policing. And all the arguments made by the honourable lady who has campaigned so hard on this for so long have been accepted by this House, and I don't think there's any particular value in unpicking the arguments that have been made there. That debate has been had. So the question now before us, and the purpose of the amendment made by my honourable friend, is what is to happen in these zones, these safe access zones they're now to be called. And I recognise the intention behind the Lord's Amendment, recognise the intention behind the original clause, but my concern is that in asserting a general principle of something that we do not want and couching that desire for a general principle in very broad terms, we are making a momentous step. We are crossing an enormous river. Well, a very small river. The Rubicon was actually a very small stream, but it was a momentous step. And when we criminalise prayer or private thought, or indeed consensual conversations between two adults, we are doing something of enormous significance in our country and in our democracy and in a liberal facility. I'm happy to give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I do agree with everything that he's saying, but my concern is, what is the motivation for somebody to silently pray there? What other motivation do they have other than to be seen by a woman who is at her lowest ebb going in for something which is not the best day of her life? In fact, it'll be one of the worst days of her life.
Well, I absolutely recognise that. The difficulty is none of us can know what the motivation is, and we can even accept, as I'm sure the honourable lady suggests, that the motivation is pretty malign by her judgment. It might be a very well-intentioned prayer on her part, but I'm sure the inference the honourable lady is making, that the attempt is to dissuade the lady from accessing the abortion clinic, is genuine. That is no doubt what is going on. My concern is with the principle of this law, how it will be applied, and the precedent that it sets in our democracy. So my concern is that the bill authorises the police to ask exactly the question that the honourable lady just asked, which is to go up to a private citizen standing on a street corner, not overtly harassing anybody, and to ask the question that the police asked that lady in Birmingham, which is, what are you praying about? What is in your head at this time? They couldn't spot that she was doing anything offensive, but they concluded that she probably was thinking something that they disapproved of, and they took steps to arrest her. I think that is a very, very concerning step that we are taking as a country, to authorise the police to act in that way. So I think there is happy to give way.
I'm grateful, and I utterly respect the sincerity of why people have moved this amendment and why my honourable friend is supporting it. And I was very pleased to see that the honourable gentleman for Antrim is against harassment. But that's the point about this amendment, because it doesn't say, and any person engaged in consensual communication or silent prayer shall avoid harassment. It says it shall not be taken as harassment. So however ostentatiously someone is praying, or however aggressively they are seeking to open consensual communication with an individual going to a clinic, it shall not be taken to be harassment. So it's a blank cheque for somebody to behave in a harassing way and then to defend themselves and saying, oh, but it says here, what I was doing shall not be taken as harassment.
The behaviour that will not be taken as harassment is the private prayer. Other actions that may be taken, offensively obstructing somebody walking down the streets, I think was his suggestion earlier, that would come in scope. What should not come in scope is somebody thinking something in their head. That is the only defence that we are trying to insist upon, and I invite members to consider whether they want to pass a law that will ban people from thinking something. If there are other means by which harassment is taking place or obstruction, then that should come within scope, well, it will come within scope of the law. So I don't think the intention is to stop people praying. I don't think that's what the honourable lady wants to do, or the government wants to do, any of us. We do need to send a clear signal of the intention of Parliament through this amendment. And I commend my honourable friend for it, and I do ask members to consider that if they vote against the amendment that he has laid. They are voting to ban private prayer. Of course, it's a special case. Of course, we're talking about these tiny little zones in circumstances which we can all sympathise with the intention of the clause. The point is the principle of it. Happy to give way.
And for giving way, I think it matters when we come to legislation to be specific. So let's be very clear. This isn't actually even in the amendment proposed by the Honourable Gentleman from Northampton South about private prayer. It's about silent prayer. It can be done in the face of somebody, can it not, as it is silent prayer, whether it is private in your head what you are thinking. And that's the challenge here. It's not actually about prayer, it's about where it is taking place. So can the Honourable Gentleman just clarify, for avoidance of doubt, that he has no problem with recognising that somebody praying in your face, silent or not, is unwelcome?
The difficulty is with the private prayer, the silent prayer. That is what we are trying to protect. If they are standing offensively in somebody's face, if they're trying to obstruct their access, then of course they will come within scope. What we're trying to protect is people like this lady who was standing quietly at the side praying to herself, as far as we know. She might have been thinking about her shopping. But that was what the police were interested in. What are you doing standing over here quietly? Of course, the difficulty is how to... I'm afraid to say there is always going to be a difficulty with this new law because the police are going to be invited, they're going to be required to make all sorts of strange interpretations and judgments about why somebody is doing something. But nevertheless, we're passing a law to create these zones. What we must do is to ensure that people who are doing this utterly inoffensive thing, which is standing quietly at the side praying, happy to give way.
Can I just give him the example of Ealing? They've had it since 2018, so this is now year 6. Only 3 breaches have occurred. None of them have resulted in a conviction because these people are usually law-abiding. There's only one that came close and it's still being legislated. I think it's probably sub judice, but it's because that was being done as a stunt. In reality, these things don't occur. People can pray elsewhere, and every Royal Medical College, the College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the BMA, all medical opinion supports this.
Danny Kruger.
Okay, well, I'll wind up, Madam Deputy Speaker, because I think the points have been well rehearsed. My concern is with the principle that we're setting here, and of course this is a case in which everybody must have sympathy with these women who need to protect them from harassment. But where does this lead, and what are we doing by saying that people should not be allowed to pray quietly on their own? Thank you.